He does mention, wrestling with the idea of maybe going back someday, like leaving the door open a crack.
Yeah.
But that pull, that vision for Microsoft, that potential he saw in,
Welcome to Bookhaven.
All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to explore.
Today, we're going deep into the origin story of, well, I guess you could say one of the most influential figures in recent history.
No arguments here.
Bill Gates.
The man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, but hold on. We're not here to rehash the whole Microsoft saga, the billions, the whole tech empire thing.
We've heard that story.
Exactly. We want to go deeper, back to before the Windows 95 launch, even before Microsoft.
Right, back to little Billy Gates.
Exactly. We're cracking open his memoir, Source Code, My Beginnings. A surprisingly personal look at, the human experiences that shaped him.
The stuff they don't put on the Wikipedia page.
You got it. Because, think about it, everyone knows Gates as this tech giant, this almost larger-than-life figure, right?
Right.
But what can we learn from the kid who, fell in love with computers before most people even knew what they were?
Exactly. What are those universal threads, those relatable moments that we can all connect with, tech geniuses or not?
So, Gates kicks things off in the book by really emphasizing his family. He even writes, and I'm quoting here, "My parents instilled in me this belief that achievement was important and that you should always strive to do things well."
Powerful stuff.
Right. So, what do you make of that? How do you see this idea playing out in his life, like in a concrete way?
It's interesting, isn't it? Because his family wasn't just like a source of love and, emotional support, which is obviously huge, but it was almost like this crucible for ambition, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
I mean, his grandmother was a teacher, big on hard work, community service, that kind of thing. His dad, a super successful lawyer, he was all about discipline, strategic thinking,
Yeah, set that bar high.
Exactly. They set the bar high, but they also gave him all the resources he needed, all the encouragement to actually reach it, Like they believed in him, and that makes a difference.
That's huge, yeah. But I gotta ask, isn't there a risk there, like pushing too hard? I mean, could that kind of backfire and just create all this pressure?
Oh, absolutely. It's a tightrope walk for sure. That balance is key.
Right.
But at least from what we see in Gates' case, it seems to have really fueled his drive without crushing him,
Yeah.
He talks about feeling challenged, absolutely, but never completely overwhelmed or suffocated.
Right, that's important.
It's almost like they fostered that whole growth mindset thing before it was a thing.
Right, like mistakes are okay, keep learning, that whole deal.
Exactly.
It makes you think about those early influences in your own life,
Yeah, right.
That balance, that support and challenge that kind of shapes who we become. Pretty powerful stuff.
I mean, talk about shaping influences. I don't know if you remember this section, but the memoir also kind of touches on those early friendships he had, including, losing his best friend when he was still a teenager.
Oh, man. Yeah, that section was tough. It really kind of hit me hard, It's just this reminder that even icons like Bill Gates, these figures we put on a pedestal, they experience loss. They experience real vulnerability.
Yeah.
I lost my grandmother when I was, maybe 10 or 11. And man, it was a real turning point for me. It made me think about life differently.
Yeah.
About what really matters.
It's a universal experience, isn't it?
It really is.
Loss, makes us face our own, mortality, makes us reevaluate what's important, like you said.
Yeah.
And
right.
Gates doesn't, dwell on it, but you can feel the impact it had on him, even all these years later. He also talks about, feeling like an outsider at times, struggling to fit in, which I think a lot of us can relate to.
Absolutely. And it makes you wonder, right? Did that kind of fuel his fascination with computers?
Oh, interesting.
Was it a way to, find a space where he excelled, where he felt, at home?
That's a good point. He does describe this almost magical world opening up to him when he first got into computers, right?
It does, yeah.
He was spending hours at the computer center teaching himself to code, just totally, utterly absorbed in this new language, this new world. He'd found his thing. And
he writes about this, he says the only constraint was computer time. There was never enough.
Wow.
And you can just feel that almost obsessive passion, in his words.
And that's what it is, right? Passion. I mean, we all have things we enjoy, right?
Yeah,
but
sure.
what flips the switch, What turns that enjoyment into this, like, burning passion?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
For Gates, it seems like it was this, like, perfect storm, right? Of just raw intellectual curiosity, that problem-solving drive. And, yeah, maybe even, like we were saying, a little bit of that desire to, find a place where he truly belonged.
Yeah. And then, of course, comes the decision that everyone talks about, the infamous dropping out of Harvard to bet everything on Microsoft.
The bold move.
In the 1970s, I mean, come on, the personal computer industry was barely a blick on the radar.
Right. Nobody knew what it would become.
So that must have seemed like an absolute crazy gamble.
Yeah, like betting on the wrong horse, big time.
Yeah. But Gates, the way he talks about it in the book, he frames it as a calculated risk.
Interesting.
He even compares it to a poker game at one point.
Wow, I like that.
And he had a vision, right?
Of course.
A clear vision. And a brilliant partner in Paul Allen. Their coding skills, I mean, they were in super high demand back then. And that early success they had with Apple, developing that version of BASIC for the Apple II.
Oh, yeah, that was huge.
I bet there was a huge confidence boost. Like,
yeah.
Okay, maybe we're onto something here.
Validation, for sure.
Yeah. But still, walking away from Harvard.
Right. Like, who does that?
Did he ever express, second thoughts? Any doubts in the book?
He does mention, wrestling with the idea of maybe going back someday, like leaving the door open a crack.
Yeah.
But that pull, that vision for Microsoft, that potential he saw in, democratizing computer power, it was just too strong. It just grabbed him and wouldn't let go.
Kind of inspiring, right?
I think so, yeah.
It speaks to the power of, conviction, I guess. Like, believing in something so deeply that you're willing to, defy all conventional wisdom. Take a chance.
That's what it takes sometimes, right?
Yeah, totally. And it's fascinating to me that even those early days, building this company, you could already see the seeds of what would become, his massive philanthropy.
Oh, yeah. How about that? It's all right there.
He talks about how his mother, who was super involved in charitable work, really instilled in him this, I guess, sense of social responsibility, especially for people with wealth and privilege.
It's more than just writing a check, right?
Exactly. She didn't just tell him to give back. She actually involved him in her work,
That's smart.
taking him along to volunteer at nursing homes, community centers. Like, he saw firsthand what it meant to give back, to make a real impact.
It's powerful stuff. And it just shows, right? Values aren't just lectured, they're lived.
Right.
It's about exposure, about real experience, about seeing how our actions affect other people.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's amazing, to see how these early threads, his family, those friendships, that first spark of passion for computers, it all kind of paved the way for what he'd become.
It's all connected, isn't it?
It really is. So what's the takeaway here?
Well, I think it's that even these icons, these giants like Bill Gates, they have relatable origins. It's about those formative influences, the choices we make, how we react to challenges, good or bad. Those are the threads that weave together the story of our lives.
I love that, the threads of our lives. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I got to leave you with a little something to think about.
All right, let's hear it.
If you were writing the early chapters of your own story, right, what would be those defining moments? What experiences, big or small, shaped who you are, for better or worse? It's worth taking a minute to, reflect on that. And maybe, just maybe, exploring the journey of someone like Bill Gates can help us understand our own a little bit better.
Food for thought.
Definitely.
Right.
Thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Until then.
Grab source code My Beginnings by Bill Gates, now on sale for just $24.00. Don't miss this chance to build good habits and achieve remarkable results. Click pre-order now today.
Like and subscribe for more Bookhaven podcasts.